like me having confidence in running the business also gives us confidence telling our customers and the market where we're going. And so one of my favorite things is speaking at industry events. And like I can say with absolute certainty exactly where we're going and how we're going to get there.
Welcome to Tip Top Grow Up Your Business with Metronomics. Join me, Shannon Susko, and Metronomics certified coach Jed Roberts.
We'll be talking to business thought leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business team coaches who have all taken the journey to grow up their businesses to their tip top.
We'll be sharing strategies, systems, stories, and how you can grow your company up at the speed you want.
If you're searching for your path to the tip top and feel your time is running out, then this podcast is for you.
Okay, well, welcome back to the Tip Top podcast, where we are talking to leaders, coaches, anyone who's looking to thrive in business. I'm your host, Shannon Susko, and with me today is Martha van Berkel, and we've had quite a time getting this organized. But that's what entrepreneurs do. We figure it out. Martha's the co-founder and CEO of Schema App. Before becoming an entrepreneur, I would say, Martha, you are an entrepreneur, and you were at Cisco, I think, for 14 years, if I have that right. And I'm excited to learn more about your journey. So let's start there. You have a really rich background of technology, business, entrepreneurship, and you spent your time at Cisco. How do you go from Cisco to founding a company? What was that? What was the decisions you had to make? And give us a little bit of color around that.
So I started at Cisco right after university. So I graduated from engineering and I was part of the brain drain, like in those years of 2000. And I was a Canadian and I moved to California. So I was like absolutely living the life in California. So part of like the draw there was just like, how much fun was it to drive, like new car, like driving down the Tees. And my dad gave me the advice to join a company that like that was growing, right? And that I would have lots of opportunities. And so I spent 14 years there. I didn't apply for one job. So I created all my jobs from being in technical support to being a team lead. And then I had this really cool opportunity when I was trying to become a project manager. And I was like in my early 20s. And I ended up discovering like a legal issue for Cisco and became like the expert in this. And everyone told me to like, it didn't matter. And then the government called. And here was like me, this like 25-year-old who was the expert in this problem. And I was like, oh, well, here's my project plan. And this is like my first project I've ever put together, right? Here's my project plan on how we solve this problem. And I had like lawyers in the room, like I had about 60 people like listening to my plan. And so I told them what we had to get done and why we had to get it done. And I made an impression on this vice president. And what I didn't know then, but I know now, was that he was an entrepreneur prior to joining Cisco.
Right. Okay, got it.
And so I guess he saw in me that like, she's just going to solve any problem I give her. She's going to figure it out. And so he gave me basically a 3-year initiative to develop, which I then basically took to building a 250-person organization to automate services. And again, like for me, this was just fun. Like I was just like, this is a fun challenge. Again, I was like too young, like I ran into all the fun things. I had to fundraise with executives. And then I got bored once it got into operations. So I moved on to the next thing. And really what made me leave was like all the entrepreneurial or like, to me, things that I was doing for the shareholders of Cisco, including myself, they started telling me I couldn't do, that it was like I was being a problem child and that I needed to like get in line. And all of a sudden I was just like, this is no fun. Like I'm solving problems for customers. And I ended up having a baby. So in Canada, we take a year off. So I had a great year to like contemplate life. And during that year, I basically decided I wasn't going back. And my husband had started a business because that's, kind of runs around the family. Just like, and so I was like, well, you're not making any money. I'll try to sell something. And so I like sold our first, thing for $30. Like, and I was so proud because I cold called. And, but I think the craziest part is I think my parents thought I was nuts. Like my parents were like, oh my goodness, like you're giving up this amazing career at Cisco and, to basically make no money. And they were right. But it was all worth it. And I think the whole time that when we, like, both Mark and I left into entrepreneurship, was we know we can always go back and get another job. Like, we're very employable. And so for us, it was like, well, we're just going to be sad if we don't give it a try. So that's how we did it. But we basically had our 2 kids during the first 3 years of being an entrepreneur, which was totally crazy. And you can track our revenue as to when I was off. But here we are. I left Cisco in 2014, and here I am 10 years later and just having a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wow. And so, okay, you leave. Welcome to entrepreneurial life. You definitely have that spirit, that problem solving. What was, thinking about others? We talk to many people who are in that corporate world. They want to leap. What were some of the things you went through in taking that leap? I mean, the year off, having a baby and whatnot, you think differently. Most people actually go less risk, and you took more risk. So how did that play out?
So before I left, 2 things happened. So one, I was part of the high potential group at Cisco, and we were very fortunate to get to work with great coaches actually during that time. And they had us do this exercise, and I'll never forget it, where it was about imagining where you were going next. And I literally finished the exercise crying because I saw myself walking through a gate that was at me leaving Cisco. So I think I knew at that stage, even though I had a role and I could go, I knew there had to be a change. And I think part of it was that I was getting this message from the executives that I used to delight and get so excited about things that they were just stop being innovative, stop making our customers happy, right? This is what I heard. I was at MIT, and they literally called me out of this innovation class from sitting with the head of innovation from Lego. This is a really cool class at MIT. And they're like, you're giving away our information on the web. And I'm like, because it's free. And that's going to, it's going to make us more money. So they just weren't making sense to me. And to me, that was part of it. But absolutely, I went from making a really great salary to having no money. And, we eventually went to social services and asked for help for daycare. Humbling moment.
That's huge, because so many people, of course, stay in the role they don't like. Yeah, for those things. And you took that huge leap out. And not only one, but you did 2 children at that time. So let's talk, if I can, because I wanted people to understand that. And maybe before I leave that, is there one piece of advice at anyone that is thinking they're in that big company, they have a business idea, they want to step out, or lots of people have a business on the side and they don't want to give it all? What's one piece of advice you could give to those entrepreneurs wanting to become entrepreneurs?
You can always go back. I think that's the piece of there's no once you become an entrepreneur that you can't go back and ask for that job back or go do something else. And the skills you're going to learn as an entrepreneur are only going to help you do that corporate job. I am a much better salesperson, a much better strategist, a much better leader because of the work that I've done as an entrepreneur. That and I would say the learning is so much faster because it's my money. It's right? In those early days, it's if I don't hustle, I don't eat. So
yeah,
you're right. There's a lot more at stake.
Totally.
So I guess that would be and what you're going to be 65 and be oh, I really wish I went and tried that thing. No, go try that thing and then go get the job back. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Love that. Okay. I might have this wrong, but I believe Schema App plays a very unique role in translating websites for search engines. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Is that close?
Yeah.
I might be just butchered everything because I know, there's a lot more to it than that. But I was just trying to we've had a discussion. We've tried to record this podcast a few times.
Yes.
So I was just trying to help out there. So how did you identify this need in the market, and What was the early vision? And maybe it's the same one for Schema App today.
So my co-founder is my husband, so full transparency. And he has a very specialized skill in something called semantic technology, which is basically like defining relationships between data. That's all you really need to know. And so when I encouraged him to quit his job in 2011 to go pursue his dream, because that's the kind of person I am, he was like, there's got to be like, this is like, everyone's been talking about this in data architecture, like they're teaching it, but it's not like in enterprise and it's not being used. I'm going to find a really applicable way. So he was really on a mission to find, like it's a commercial way of using this data architecture approach that, there's been a ton of research on, but it just like hasn't really hit and sort of been adopted sort of across the board. And so he tried many different things. And I was the investor at that time. So I was the person paying for things. So I would ask questions, and I had done product management at Cisco. So I was like, well, who's buying it? Like, you got to go do that for a sale. Like you got, and so like the Steve Blank books, like we would read those together and he would go try something. And so it really was like in 2014, 2015, we were sort of doing a different version of our business. And we found out that like this area of like schema markup, it's called, but like this area of SEO is actually designed with this whole semantic technology in mind. And so he was like, oh, well, I can write this or I can automate it. And so we joke that like we're in Guelph, Ontario, Canada, like that our little local community businesses had like the most advanced SEO back in 2014, 2015, because we were doing this for them. And it really was like, well, what if we could do this at scale? And one thing that I learned about myself at Cisco is like, I can sell ideas. Like I was very good at that. And so I just started talking to people. Imagine like, just like, hey, are you trying to do this? And, everyone from like local businesses. And then it was really cool because we got someone inbound. So like on our website, we were talking about the thing that we were, had been building. And they're like, do you do this? And we're like, yeah. And ironically, I had signed a 5-year lease for a new office that I couldn't afford. And that deal closed 30 days before I took over that space for exactly the amount of the lease, right? But it was enough then to be like, oh my goodness, like they're paying us real money. And it was a big US client. And then I got asked to be on like a panel in Toronto for marketing TO with a bank and Google. And what was so cool was that I used that bank as my demo because they were doing what we do and then turned them into a customer, right? So it was just like these like snowball pieces. But like the idea really came from, again, Mark being opportunistic and then applying some knowledge and then me just being hungry to go talk to everybody about it. Yeah.
Fantastic. What a good partnership. Great partnership. What, when we think about aspects of life, right? So there's life when we're building a business, and then there's, building a business. Yours is definitely really tight together. But think about what was the influence on your leadership style, and then just the approach to running a high growth business. The business is more than a decade old. You've been in it for a decade, but I think it started even before you joined full time. So what were some of the influences about, the leadership style, how you're doing it, and thinking about a high growth business?
So you were one of my influencers, Shannon. You know this. So, well, and I think that was probably like 2019 when I started reading your book, The Metronome Effect. And I was like, oh, this is really clear how I don't have to invent everything. So I think one of the things like I ran into was that like I was good at creating and making stuff up, but it was exhausting. And so like the more we could find models, so we like read Scaling Up, but it doesn't give you a recipe. Like we read like Steve Blank stuff and like, but it doesn't give you a recipe. And so like your first book that I read, I was just like, oh my gosh, you're telling me what meetings to have and like, like what email to send. And so I actually started sending a CEO email very early on because I'm like, and I literally have copies of them at my home office, like here. And I'm like, okay, reminder, like this is what I have to do, right? Like, okay, go do it.
Yes.
So thank you. So that was one.
I love that. Yeah, thank you.
I think the other piece that comes to mind is just like, what are all the annoying things that I experience in my 14 years at Cisco.
Right. Right.
That like I don't want to have at Schema App.
Yeah.
And I say that because like I've learned that like you have to be very intentional about culture and
Yes.
values, right? So that those things kind of come
Yes.
together. And
Yeah.
it's very easy to have values on paper that you don't necessarily make decisions around or live around, or that it's easy to like usurp it to someone else on your team.
Yes.
And I did that recently, and I had like some hard learning because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like we're a humble organization, right? Like humbly confident is one that we're tossing around. We're just rewriting our values right now with some of this learning. And I was like, well, like if someone walks around with ego or needs to be the center of attention, that's not humble leadership. Like,
Yeah.
and so like,
Yeah.
well, what am I going to do about it? Right. So I think
Right.
these are the things that I think I've learned in leadership is that like, it just can't be words. It's words and actions together.
Yeah.
And that you have to be really intentional about it. And, we've always wanted, like, we weren't very good at like being accountable to results very early on. And so we'd hit some, like, we planned this crazy target. And we were just like, of course we're going to hit that, right? Like anything's possible. And then we would miss it quarter after quarter. And
Definitely been there.
and leadership was just like, I was just like, all right, we'll try again, right? Like, I'm a galvanizer, right? So it's like, oh, we'll just go.
Yeah.
Only then to be like, oh, we missed it again. And so then it was like, okay, we have to actually like change the process if we expect a different result, right?
Yes.
And so like we went through OKRs, which is, like setting objectives and holding people accountable and like doing that. We went virtual during COVID. And so I had luckily led virtual teams before, so that wasn't a big deal for me. But the accountability was so much more important, and we weren't great at that. So I think those were some of, I would say, like the highlights and lowlights of just like moments, and then just like keeping people too long when they weren't good for the job. And I would say like, the other leadership skill is interviewing. Like, I think I still suck at it. Like, I still need to kind of do better.
We are all learning in that area. Like, we're all getting better. We're still getting better at that area.
Yeah.
It's about, I love that you say that because it's about how clear we can be so clear on our values and our cultural system, all those things. And then it's so hard to ask the questions at the time to make sure we identify the best fit for our team with the right skills, right? I mean, we're always looking to do that.
And how do we and it's not just like, oh, that was a good enough answer. It's like, well, no, how do you keep asking questions to get it to be a great answer, right? And that we're not serving ourselves as a company if we're not like investing that time. And I think one of the biggest learnings about interviewing, so one is like, I need to spend way more time preparing. So that's like a good one. I'm learning also just about like that you don't necessarily have to follow, like you have to follow the process, but like you can have more meetings than you plan to if you need that to get the answers. And I think that's one of the pieces of like, it is still about, not rushing, but about like making sure you truly have those answers, that you're confident that you've heard evidence of it. And so that's like been one that, like I'm applying and learning right now, just as we go through.
I know. And the biggest thing around the hiring system process, we're a big fan of top grading. We like to follow that methodology, bring it alive, make it practical. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that we're asking the questions and we have others with us. Because when we have the biggest hole that we need to fill to get our time back, we'll sort of, humanly, make a few exceptions here and there. And we need others to go, no, they actually, I don't agree that they fit, or no, I don't think they have that, the experience required, where we're like, and we all need to help each other. And then after we do make a hire, whether it was, like we're looking for that 9 out of 10 times we got the right person, but there are times we don't, having that post-mortem to discuss, what went right and what could we do better next time. So then we like up it, re-up it, keep re-upping it. And I just want to say I've been following that process for, I hate to say it, but 25 years.
Yeah.
And, we're still doing it. We still follow with the postmortem if we hire someone and what went well or what didn't go well.
You've basically described the conversations I've had over the last 2 days, right? So we're hiring,
so
right? Like it's just so good. But it's, And I think the other one, so we just did tandem interviews for the first time for this most
Good.
recent leadership team hire. And then that's like, this is the first time I've talked about leadership team hire. And I think this was another like thing I've learned through working with one of your coaches, like with Peter Oxley. It's been amazing, which is like, if you're on the leadership team, like that's your first team, which means that when we hire a new manager that's going to be on the leadership team is interviewing and choosing that person, not the team that's going to
play together.
Absolutely. Right. And like, and we screwed that up last month, right? Like, so we're trying again this month, right? Like we're learning again. But it's so powerful because like now, like 2/3 of us are giving the thumbs up, right? We're like, yes, like this is good. And we all sort of have our own learning from like our own journey. So that's been like, top grading's been, again, it's like, I feel like it's going to take me forever to master it, but I'm learning so much every time.
But I think that's the best approach to take, right? That we're going to keep learning. Our process gets better, keep learning. We're going to have new people join the team. They need to, learn too. And we're all learning together. And we're all committed to getting the best team members for our team, right, to go forward.
So 2 years ago, like I wasn't sure I was having fun anymore as CEO. This is probably the only time I've talked about that openly, but like I didn't feel like I was growing. And part of it, I think, was that like I felt stuck in what I had created and that I couldn't change things. I think I had that belief. And it's been really interesting because as I started working, starting from that workshop we did, right? You came in December to Communitech and you walked us through like creating your BHAG and your 3HAG, so your 3-year highly achievable goal. And Mark and I just did that. So we just came as co-founders to like workshop it. And then we did a follow-on session with Peter, who was like taking us through, and I had like a million questions because I had read like a bunch of your books. I had been self-implementing and like not knowing what to do. And no joke, like those 2 or 3 months of us journeying through that was a game changer for me having fun. Because I think all of a sudden, I wasn't stuck being like, Martha, you have to figure it out. Like, it's really hard work. I'm kind of tired. To like, okay, I'm just going to give you this hint that's going to allow you to like, oh, by the way, Martha, this is a team sport. Like, all your leaders are going to do planning with you. You don't have to do it on your own. It's like, oh, well, that's like way more fun. Like, so I just think it like the coaching and having someone help you get better, for me, I think was a game changer in that, like, I'm feeling stagnant as a leader growing to like, I'm thriving, excited, wanting to coach my team more. I'm like, I have someone to ask my hard questions to and kind of be a mirror back. So, thank you for, again, like, I just like, it was so fun.
You're so welcome, because that's where I wanted to switch to, because it's really interesting. So many people are in your situation, wanting to grow, right? Everybody wants to grow. They're looking for a solution. That was me as well back in the day. And I couldn't find that solution. I had a coach. They didn't have that solution. And so, but when you started self-implementing, like read books, self-implementing, looking to fill the gaps. It was cool. It was so great to meet you. It seems like a long time ago, but I don't think it was that long time ago we met. Yeah, it's like a year and a bit, right? How fast you've come in a year and a bit, because you then came to the workshop, you worked through it. You're definitely well-versed. But can you talk a little bit more about, since, you joined the Communitech Roundtable with Peter Oxley, one of our coaches, leading it. And since then, you're now working full on with Peter as your coach. Can you talk about a little bit of the decision making there as you work through it? Because you've come like within 12 months, you went from self-implementing to, I'm going to go to a workshop. Now I'm going to join the roundtable. And now like Peter's your coach, which is fantastic.
Well, I also attended Tip Top Summit, which was amazing. So, Peter was like, you're super enthusiastic, you should come. And so I just booked the flight and went. And I'm from Vancouver, so it was also fun to come home for a bit. And And I think what was really cool, so both inspirational speakers, but also to meet so many coaches and people who had implemented, where I could say, like, how has this changed the team? Like, I could ask a lot of my kind of, well, what's the impact? And, where did you get stuck? And there were so many people from HR leaders to CEOs to kind of members of leadership teams that were just like, oh my gosh, it just like simplifies life. And I think that's like the biggest like before and after, and in addition to being inspired, I guess, and energized about coaching my team is just like, I just don't feel like I'm guessing anymore. And so like where the workshop was like, okay, well, that's our 3 HAG. It wasn't until we got into the workshops to kind of say like, well, what does it actually look like to achieve your 1 HAG? And then your 1 year highly achievable goal, and like what do you have to do in the next 90 days to kind of make progress there. And again, like bring all the leaders around the table and have hard truth, right? So we like hard debated things. We, put stickies on, the dreamers at the table were like, we're going to do these millions of things. And, we knew that we always took on too much. So it was like the table had 3 priorities. And I think the coolest thing, so we started in June. So June, July, August, and then September was actually our end of year. And we hit all our numbers in that quarter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, like, there's nothing like going from, oh, I really hope I hit that number, right? Which you're doing all your budgeting for, like you're planning hiring, like, we're trying to be like a little bit profitable so that we have, wiggle room in case we, and then eventually we'll like build to, we're a 30-person company to give people context, and in a very evolving market. And so like, oh my goodness, like we actually did it. Right? Like it was just like,
it feels good to win.
It feels good to win.
To, lay out a goal and you get it. It increases your confidence, saves time. Like, I love it.
All the things. And then I think like the coolest part was that like, I also see it, the whole team percolating through, right? And so we've moved pretty, like, so everyone uses, like we use the Metronomics software platform. Clarity of like what we're talking about in 101, right? So I've always had you have to have 101s weekly. Stand-ups were a game changer. Anyone hesitating to set up your stand-ups, do it. I love it. I really hesitated to set up a leadership team stand-up. I was doing like other stand-ups.
Oh, interesting.
And then now it's so fun because we're like, oh, this is blocking me. This is blocking me. And we do lots of handoffs. Like, finance today was like, Martha, you need to approve these like commissions. And I needed someone to review this like security document for a deal. And like there's just like lots of throwing around. We moved so much faster now as a result of that, that it's just been game changing. And then this past quarter, I implemented scorecards. And so, even if they're like wrong, they're just like so clear. And I love that.
No, there's nothing, there's never a wrong
it's like
scorecard.
A first pass. How about this? That's a really good first pass.
It's just one that we can evolve. And so I love it. Just for the listeners listening in, your stand up 15 minutes, in our world, we'll call it a daily connect, a daily huddle. People call it a scrum. I come from technology background too. And a lot of this, came from that. And the thing I love is that so many people, and what I heard you say, which just made me smile greatly, is that so many people want to avoid those daily connects, those 15 minutes. But it's 15 minutes that actually you get time back, and it actually speeds everybody up, right? And it speeds everyone up, and you're spending less time in it. And so I love that. And then I got to go to scorecards. Because scorecards were this thing that, grew out of top grading for us, that, we're going to hire with that scorecard, that clarity of the purpose, the measures of success, what you're accountable for, and the competencies. And then when you're hiring, you're putting in the compensation and all that goes with. And then what we learned is that you get all these A players into your company. And then I was like, okay, now we have to coach, keep, and grow them. Let's bring that simplified scorecard in, right, to our coaching reviews and to give the clarity. So I love that you've just gone like, rip the Band-Aid off. You're in quarter 2. Let's get scorecards.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more
why?
about it. Yeah.
I also really believe that like an A player, so someone who meets or exceeds like their goals, like is 2 times more efficient, if not 10 times more efficient than like a B or C player. And I feel like it's hard for leaders because we're human to kind of be like, this is a B player, like this is an A player. Like it's hard. No one wants to do it. And so what I love about like, whether that be like clear goals, right? Priorities and pieces you have to deliver on and clear metrics. It's also like clear, like these are the things you have to do, the accountabilities to do the job. And there's nothing like just having them on paper and saying, okay, this is the job. Like, do you agree to them? And then when they don't do them, it's really easy. It's like, hey, we agreed to this. Like, you're not doing it. So like, I need your behavior to change, right? And then it's like the coaching is so much easier. And so like, to me, this is just about being clear. Like clarity is kindness. And so I just love that, like, this is the job. And what's so fun is that like I have, I'm currently acting as head of customer success in my business. And I grew up in, well, I'm wearing more than that, but like, I'm trying to hand them off. But this is temporary, but I grew up in services. So I'm like a customer success person by background. And it's been so much fun, like defining the accountabilities with the team, like on what, again, like as the CEO, like this is what a CS person does. And then being like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, I didn't know what that is. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like, we can now teach you this thing. And then these are the tasks you need to do that tell me that you know how to do that thing. And it's like, and so then you see them get clarity and grow and then ask questions. Like, it's just so fun. So I think like scorecards for me are just like, it is so much easier to coach and frankly fire someone who's not performing if it's really clear. And so I'm doing it for myself. It's totally selfish.
So I'm so glad you said that because scorecards, okay, yes, they grew up and were inspired by and came out of top grading, but I did it for myself as CEO because my biggest weakness was one-on-one, I'd always let someone off the hook. And so this was a way to make it objective. This was the way to like you agreed, I agreed. This was the role. These were the measures of success. This is what you signed up for. And then it created the objectivity, not subjectivity, but objectivity. And the two, myself and whoever that person was. And in the beginning, it was my leadership team. And then they loved it too. And they took it out to theirs and so on. But I love that you ended up, selfishly, it's for the human side of us all, right? And to bring us clarity. And not only that, the other thing that I found really great is it, like those scorecards are out there for everybody to see. And it, held me accountable to hold them accountable. And also that peer accountability of whoever volunteered for that scorecard, like I got it, felt accountable to the rest of the team. So amazing that I know you've learned about this a while, but this is like one of the best steps you can do is get that clarity around scorecards, because then we know the who should be in that role. And I know we talked about this, you took some steps around getting clear on the hiring, but you've also removed, some team members to go find an organization that maybe fits them better, right? Through the clarity of the process.
And you know what? Like hard decisions, like, and again, I wouldn't have done it without my coach. I needed someone objective because I think as CEO, and again, like my co-founder is my husband, right? Like I really wanted him to make that decision with me. And it wasn't his decision, it was my decision as CEO. And I think like you need a coach, like you need someone you can call, and then also someone that held me accountable. And so I really, it was like one of the hardest days as leader. And but my leadership team is so good, and the team is so good afterwards. I wish like if I could only like call myself, right, and be like, it's all going to be great, like it's going to be fine, right? It's just hard to make those decisions.
Yeah.
But I think the scorecards bring that clarity, and then coaches also can see differently, objectively, the dynamic of the team. And I think sometimes we get clouded by the fact that it's like, oh man, we've all journeyed together. Like this is like my work family, right? And it's like knows my team, and I like have to have the right players in my team. And I
Well,
really,
you're not going to get to where you need to go, right?
well,
Like if we don't have the right players on our team.
that's the other t-shirt I need to get. I have my gutted out mug from you, but like, it's like, like, like what's going to get you to your 3-hag? Like your 3-year highly achievable goal. Like, I just keep repeating that. It's like, does this person have the skills I need for this next piece, right? And I think so often it's like, oh, well, I'm going to wait. Well, can I wait for 2 years, 3 years? No, actually, I don't have 3 years because I'm going to be there in 3 years. So I think that's the other part that just a lot of CEOs, I think we self-talk and we hesitate, but we really just, that's where the coach comes in.
You went from, workshop to, yep, I'm doing this, I'm self-implementing, to coach-led roundtable, to coach. And, your coach is one of our coaches, Peter Oxley. What do you think, if you had to boil it down in your early, you're a couple quarters in to this, what's the biggest influence that Peter's had on your journey so far and team progress?
So I think the first is just, how do we as a leadership team make decisions and hold each other accountable and set goals that we're going to win together or learn together? And, that was a game changer in even just how we did planning. Like, historically, it was like I would just choose and then they would figure out how to do it. So that whole, and it's actually like my favorite thing now because we all come prepared, we debate it, we sometimes disagree. And then, we all come up with our numbers and then we stand together in front of the organization and say, we have confidence. And actually, we just increased our target this quarter. Like, we are 2 weeks in and we've just increased our number because we're just we have line of sight on this. This is going to happen. So I think that's the big, and that comes to cohesiveness of team. And then the other big influence is just I am way less stressed because we have a plan and we have a team and I have someone who I can go and ask hard questions to. And what I might consider to myself a stupid question, but I kind of just need to ask someone who can be actually, Martha, that's not a stupid question. Let's explore this, or they'll kind of drill into it a bit more with me. It's like CEO therapy, but but about doing the work, right? About getting the work done.
Well, I love how you make the comment around less stress, and because you can see it's not all on your shoulders. I think it's why in the early days of becoming a CEO, I instantly went to find a coach when coaches didn't really exist, but I was looking for them for that sounding board. But then I brought my coach in to work with me, so they could see me work with my team and then map that future out together. When you think about, the work that you've done so far, and I know there's always, it's a progression. So when we get more comfortable and we start forgetting about the process, what do you see in the future of Schema App when now you've got the system being implemented? You've got that Metronomics coach that goes with the system. What do you look at and excited about aligning your team for your 3-hag? What are you excited about looking at?
So I'm really excited about the growth I'm seeing in the team, as we get clarity on their current role and sort of the small pieces we can coach on and give them experiences on. And because we're planning really well, for example, we're actually doing a workshop right now with Amazon, and we're doing some AI sort of work. And one of the customer success managers is there who's trying to get more technical and develop skills in those pieces. But again, all the scorecards just helped us get clarity on that. And then as the opportunity came with local, absolutely he needs to go to that because that's going to create that space. So I'm loving sort of the kind of cross-functional kind of experiences that are growing the team and frankly growing myself and the leadership team. So that's one of them, but that all comes with priorities and scorecards, all the pieces kind of coming together. I think the other piece that's exciting is me having confidence in running the business also gives us confidence telling our customers and the market where we're going. And so one of my favorite things is speaking at industry events, and I can say with absolute certainty exactly where we're going and how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that,
Amazing.
and so that then like gets them excited, makes them call us and spend money with us, right? Like it's just this like, which then fuels the team, which allows me to hire A players,
Yeah.
which boom, 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 right?
Yeah. If you were to give a piece of advice to other CEOs who are considering, adopting a system, and, you've adopted the Metronomics system, what advice would you give them?
I think the piece that, so I tried lots of systems, like, so I wanted to I say that it's like, I think that it isn't just about reading the book and trying it. There's something magical. And for me, it's about the speed at which things can happen when when the system has components that are easy to operationalize. And I think that's the piece that like we have discovered with Metronomics that again, like between like the software platform and the supporting books that help people understand like the theory behind it, and then the coaching on top of it and the community, right? Like there's also this great community. I listen to your podcast all the time. That like, I just have like lots of ways to kind of learn my like different ways of learning and different exposure to the team that allows me to like, I literally see us spinning faster. Like it's helping us accelerate. And so I think as you're thinking about a system, don't just read the book. Don't just listen to a podcast. Don't just find a piece of software. I'm seeing like a 10x type of speed of movement when you combine the things together.
Yeah, all the pieces. I love that. And a lot of times people are overwhelmed, thinking, oh, there's all these pieces. Even when I explain, our playbook and, it's a coach and an open playing field, there's some pieces. But I think, I know you started like you read the book and then that can be slow moving. But when you make that decision, right? And it doesn't matter which system, as you said, you make that decision, you can start like driving that forward. And I love that you partnered with Peter Oxley to do that, one of our coaches, because it definitely speeds it up. There's no doubt, having worked with and without a coach in my own world.
Let me give you this ROI. My business has never been moving this fast, ever.
Amazing. So, to everyone else out there, why wouldn't you think about this,
And it's less stressful. How much fun is that? Let's move faster and be less stressed.
Okay, so I'm going to stress you with some rapid fire questions. Now, it won't stress you. So, a few quick questions. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Oh my goodness. Build a powerful leadership team. They'll get all the work done.
Nice. Favorite productivity tool?
Stand up. I can't believe I just said that, but it's so true.
Oh, I know. It's so good. So good. One book every business leader should read.
Oh, I read a lot. I think the book that I go back to that like when I'm having a really hard day is Ben Horowitz, The Hard Things About the Hard Things.
Ah, so good.
And I love it because it's like someone's not working because like people are dead. I go read the chapter about like how you like have to take ownership that you hired the wrong person. And then like, own it. And then I'm like, okay, I can say that. I can own that. And then, so I feel like I go back to it for just like, oh yeah, that's true. I need to go to, so that's probably my favorite, like that I go back to all the time. And I'm just like, oh man.
I do love that book. It's good. It's straight up. It's like on like, as a CEO and a leader, you own it. You absolutely own it.
Yeah, so I like that book.
Well, I want to say thank you because this is third time lucky. It's been fantastic to have you on as a guest on our podcast. Where can our listeners learn more about Schema App and connect with you?
Sure. So best place to learn about it is on our website, www.schemaapp.com. And if you'd like to connect with me, just shoot me a connection on LinkedIn and just put a note as to that you listened and why you want to connect.
Love it. Love it. So thank you. Thanks for being a part of our Metronomics community. Thanks for working with Peter Oxley. I know he's been raving about how fun he's having with you. And I can't wait to hear more about your journey as it progresses, because growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by
No.
design. You've been doing it. See you next time on the Tip Top podcast. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me, Shannon.
Tip Top is brought to you by Metronomics.
To find out more about Metronomics and how this proven 20-year-old system will save you time and money as you grow up your business,
visit metronomics.com. That is metronomics.com.
share your thoughts on today's episode in the comments and suggest topics you'd love us to explore the next time.
Also search for Metronomics in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else that great podcasts are found.